Remember the 2000s when Barnes & Noble was a giant and Amazon was taking over the world selling books online? People thought it was the death of the local independent bookstore. But flash forward to today, and indie bookstores are thriving across the country. We meet a bookstore owner in Glens Falls who credits success to seeking out books in which customers can see themselves. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Long Run Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor in Lake Placid, providing comprehensive wealth management, retirement, and financial planning solutions. LongRunWealth.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Wednesday, January 29th. First up, President Donald Trump's budget office has rescinded an order freezing trillions of dollars in spending on federal grants, less than 2 days after it sparked widespread confusion and legal challenges across the country. Administration officials said the decision to halt loans and grants was necessary to ensure that spending complies with Trump's recent blitz of executive orders on push-button issues like gender, DEI, and climate change. But the freeze sparked uncertainty over a crucial financial lifeline for states, schools, and organizations that rely on trillions of dollars from Washington. It left the White House scrambling to explain what would and wouldn't be subject to a pause in funding. The White House rescinded the order this afternoon in a 2-sentence notice to agencies and departments. A fight over the location of a proposed Border Patrol facility in the Thousand Islands could get an assist from President Trump's border czar. Local groups opposing the Blind Bay location on the St. Lawrence River say they may have an in with the Trump administration. Catherine Wheeler reports.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection wants to build a new 49,000 square foot station to replace its current one on Wellesley Island, and it's been looking for the right spot. Officials have been particularly interested in Blind Bay on the St. Lawrence River. The proposal has drawn a lot of opposition from locals, environmentalists, and elected officials on both sides of the aisle. They say the project would damage the sensitive river ecosystem there. That's why Thousand Islands Land Trust Executive Director Jake Tibbles was happy to hear in November that CBP had decided to study an additional site.
This was just really big news.
Residents have dubbed this new location the Cloverleaf. It's where Route 12 intersects with Interstate 81 near the river. Tibbles says while he's happy about the decision, it keeps the issue in limbo. CBP had said it planned to release the environmental assessments of Blind Bay and one other site in early 2025.
The end of January closes in on the 3-year anniversary of this proposal being presented to the town of Orleans. So yes, there is additional pressure having this looming over us.
Since the beginning, Senator Chuck Schumer has been a staunch advocate for the river community. He successfully pressured CBP to include the Cloverleaf location and for the agency to hold public meetings about the proposal this past summer. But now the Trump administration is in charge. Tibbles says people are worried.
There were many people who've expressed concerns regarding the Trump administration's focus on border security, strengthening Border Patrol's presence at both the southern and northern border. This was definitely giving the river community pause and concern.
But President Donald Trump selected Jefferson County native Tom Homan as his border czar. Homan was Trump's acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement in 2017 and 2018. He grew up in Carthage and lived in Sackett's Harbor after he left the administration. He knows the area. Tibbles says that North Country connection might be helpful.
Having open lines of communication with top advisors in the Trump administration on this issue may prove helpful so that this facility not only does what it's supposed to do with it, which is strengthening border security at the northern border, but also is not in conflict with the local community, the North Country, its economics, and our overall way of life.
In a letter to Schumer from November, a CBP official said that the agency would be pushing back the release of its environmental assessment until fall of 2025, so the necessary studies could be performed. But a CBP spokesperson said this month that the Office of Facilities and Management has not released a date on which the assessment will be released. A spokesperson for Schumer says that he'll, quote, continue to push the new administration to make sure the North Country is heard. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio.
The number of indie bookstores in the United States has doubled since 2016. Almost 300 new stores opened just last year. Today, we'll meet a woman who recently moved from California to Glens Falls to open her own tiny bookstore. Anna Williams-Bergen has this North Country at Work story.
Hillary Smith is the owner of Black Walnut Books, a teeny independent bookshop in Glens Falls. She's worked at bookstores for a long time, but this is the first one she's owned. And she says she's part of a renaissance of independent bookstores.
I started in the book industry right after Amazon started in the middle of a recession. It was not a great time for books. And tons of old, mom and pop shops closed all over the country. But now there's more bookstores than there have ever been. And tons of little indie specialty bookstores are opening up all the time.
The idea of her bookstore started when Smith was living in California. Between COVID-19 and some bad wildfires, she had a bit of time off to think about what she wanted to do and where she wanted to do it. Her partner was from this area, and they wanted to be somewhere that wasn't on fire. Smith wanted to focus on books by underheard voices, queer and indigenous folks, and authors of color.
So I started it as a Bookstagram account on Instagram before I moved, just so that people could kind of hear my recommendations and get a feel for what I like to read. And then when I moved here, I started doing pop-ups.
Smith relishes finding the perfect book for each customer. She says getting to connect with a fellow reader is why a lot of people still rely on independent bookstores.
My favorite thing is when I have repeat customers and they come in and they say, okay, this one was perfect and this is what I didn't like about that one, so we can really nail it down and get the perfect book for them.
Smith says bookstores are the heart of a community.
It's just a safe space to go and see other people who are like you, voices that are like yours or totally different than yours, and you can grow and change and see so many different worlds.
A big part of that for Smith is reading own voices, books written by the people they're about. Nearly every book in her store was written by an author of color, indigenous, or queer person.
And I think you can find these gems and these really unique voices that just haven't been published as much.
Opening Black Walnut Books went really well, even better than Smith expected. Just a year later, in March of 2024, she opened Little Black Walnut Books just down the hall. Same idea, just for kids.
It's been really so surreal and heartwarming to hear the feedback from queer people who have grown up here and can't believe that this exists in their hometown, and from young people who are getting to grow up with this.
Smith is building the kind of space she wishes she had as a child.
As a queer Indigenous person, getting to see myself or other queer Indigenous people is so meaningful. I've literally cried.
Smith says she wasn't sure what to expect opening a business that was so openly queer, but she's felt welcomed and safe.
Everyone has been so lovely, even people who don't know the right words or how to do pronouns and everything. They come in and they're wanting to learn and grow. And it's been nice to see people be so welcoming.
If you're looking for your next read, Smith recommends Broken Blade by Melissa Blair, or This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. For North Country Public Radio's North Country at Work project, I'm Anna Williams-Bergen in Glens Falls.
The story was made possible in part by the Essex County Arts Council's Cultural Assistance Program grant, with funding provided by Essex County. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by I Am Snow Angel of Lake Placid and David Archibald of Kingston, Ontario. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.